Hi there, how are you doing? Have you got a business that you really want to grow, take to the next level, scale up, expand? You're onto a really good thing and you think, wow, I could do so much with my business and with these ideas. Or maybe you just love what you do so much you want to do more of it and really take it to the next level. Hi, I'm Jo North and I run a business called the Big Bang Partnership. We specialise in innovation and growth. And I just wanted to share a few tips really around how to scale up, because I think so many people that I'm working with at the moment are coming out of lockdown. The world's emerging, it's all opening up again, which is absolutely fantastic. And they're thinking, actually, I want to take my business to the next level. They've had some time, perhaps in many cases, to reflect and pause and think about what's important and reassess all of their priorities and their purpose and so on. So I wonder if that's the case for you. Do let me know if that resonates with you. I think we've all had, a very different business experience through this, and wherever we are in our business, it's time to really reset, look to the future and see how we can take our business to the next level. It's also a really special time because I'm actually partnering with a fantastic person called Mahmood, who is also known as the Numbers Rockstar. And a week away, we are kicking off our Business Growth Club. And the Business Growth Club is an incredible opportunity for people who are like-minded business people to come together and create a really lean and agile plan to really scale up their businesses, get ideas from each other, as well as getting the two business minds from me and Mahmood as well, working together to help them with their business. We've got a few places available. We've got limited places overall. We're deliberately limiting the numbers. So if that's something you're interested in, then let me know. I'll put the link down below here underneath this. So we'll get started. And there's so much we could talk about really with how to scale your business. So I'm going to share a few thoughts just to get us going. Now, scaling up your business, what is a scale-up company? Scaling up, scale up, it's one of those phrases that's sort of bandied around, and I think it's really important to think about what we mean by the term scale up. Well, a scale-up company is one that shows strong, consistent growth in terms of revenue or customer base. So there's an idea there. The idea has proven to be successful in the early stages, or the business itself has shown to be successful. And it's really about taking that to the next level. So expanding the markets, expanding the number of customers, expanding volumes, and everything that goes with really, really leveling up the business. So it's an exciting time for a business, and it's an exciting time for a business owner. And it really means actually letting go of some of the previous ways of operating that we've had, the things that have helped us to start the business up and get us to where we are now. Sometimes we need to let go of some of those things to bring in some new things that will take us to the next level. So there are some critical success factors around scaling up. And these are in no particular order. They're all really important. But actually having strong leadership, the leadership, that's you if you're the business owner, the entrepreneur, the leader, knowing where you want to go, knowing why you want to get there, having a really clear vision and being able to communicate that vision and share it with the people around you, whether they are your colleagues, your fellow people in the business. They might be suppliers, and also, of course, communicating to customers as well. So having this really strong, compelling vision and leading the process of growth. And you need the right talent and skills around you as well. So we all have loads of fantastic things that we can do, our strengths, our own particular talents and capabilities. And it's also really important that we identify any potential blind spots or weaker areas, and we use people around us to fill those. So the right talent and skills to help you level up are really, really important. And having access to markets. So in order to scale up, it means selling more. And it means selling more and selling profitably as well. So it's about knowing where you're going to go. Where are you going to sell your products and services? How is that scale up going to happen in terms of demand? And how are you going to access and tap into that demand, and having the capability to strategize around that, and then, of course, to really go for it and make it happen. Finance, of course, is important because scaling up usually involves investment. There's impact on cash. There are some profit things to think through, and I'm going to share some thoughts on that with you in a moment. And actually the infrastructure to support you. So by infrastructure, I don't necessarily mean motorways and bridges. What I mean is business infrastructure. So things like having digital communications, marketing systems, processes, the right way of organising your business, the systems and procedures that you have. So all of those things are really critical to have them operating and working as efficiently and effectively as possible to enable you to scale up and be really successful. Now, a really important thing to work through before you start to do any of that is to make sure that you've actually got the demand, that there is the scale out there for you to go and sell more and do more with your markets and your target customers. So it's about looking for evidence, really trying to back up your thinking that if you scale up and you start to make bigger volumes of product, or you start to offer even more services and maybe go from a one-to-many business model, for instance, that there is a market there for you to serve and that the demand is there to help you with your scale-up process. Because if not, you need to know that you can actually create that demand, that you feel confident that with marketing and excellent communications and getting good PR out there and everything else, that you can really create the demand for what you want to do. And you need reliable core processes. So there's two things really. It's about making sure that the demand exists and having some confidence around that. And then it's also making your business scale up ready. And that means having really good replicable core processes. And what I mean is processes that anybody can do so that the business isn't completely reliant on you and you taking action alone. But actually, you can delegate some things, you can outsource some things, you can, contract some things out to suppliers, and that they will be able to do some of that processing, and it's repeatable. So this could be things like your sales, your marketing, your customer experience, the production, if you are a product-led business, finance, admin, purchasing, all of that. You need processes around that so that all of that just works really smoothly with the least amount of effort, the maximum efficiency, so that you can focus on growing, but also so that you're spending time in the right places and that your processes support you. Same with your logistics. And also some business continuity. So what business continuity is about is sometimes things go wrong or there are unexpected events, and it's knowing what you will do and having plans in place should anything happen that's a bit out of the ordinary or untoward. So my really strong recommendation, I'm going to help you with some tips on how you can do this a little bit later, is to invest effort in getting your core processes right before you scale them up. And also expect issues to come up as you scale, because sometimes when things are small, you don't see, or smaller, all the issues aren't evident. They're only evident as you start to build out and make your business bigger. And that's when sometimes, the cracks start to show. So really make sure that you get as much ironed out as possible, but do expect some learning on the way as you scale. Now, I talked about finance earlier, and that's a really important thing to think through. So once you've identified what the demand is and you know there's a demand there, and you've worked out how much you want to scale up, how many more customers you want to attract, thinking through the finances is actually a pretty straightforward process, and it's really important. And I tell you what, it's a part of the process that many business owners and entrepreneurs just don't do. So if you can do this for yourself, you'll get ahead of the game. Now, I'm going to share my thoughts on this. And I know my fantastic colleague, Mahmood, is also much more of an expert on this as well. And I'll share some resources from him at the end that you can download and use for yourself. But one area to think about is cost, of course. How much is it going to cost you to scale up? Now, the great thing about scaling up is that it helps get a greater return from your fixed costs. Now, costs are different according to how they behave, essentially. So a fixed cost is a cost that doesn't change regardless of how much activity you carry out. So for instance, let's say we have, I don't know, I'm going to make it a hairdresser's salon, the rent for that salon would be the same whether you service 3 clients or 20 clients. As long as you're using the same building, the rent for that building is the same. That's a fixed cost. And when you scale up, if you can scale up and keep your fixed costs the same, what you end up doing is a great thing, which is getting a greater return from that fixed cost. So it actually means that your unit price goes down per fixed cost because you're using your asset far more than you would have been to do more stuff. It sort of logically makes sense. I hope I've explained that in a way that makes sense to you. Now, of course, sometimes where we are can only take us so far and we need to invest to get to the next level. So, for instance, in my simple hairdressing salon example, it might only accommodate 20 clients, let's say. And if you're servicing 20 clients, you're at 100% occupancy, you're completely full. You might need to open another salon to expand and to scale up. So what you're going to see then is a stepped fixed cost. You need to go to the next level of fixed cost in order to make that activity happen. If you open a third, the next again. There are also variable costs to think about. So fixed costs, they remain unchanged regardless of how much you sell. The variable costs do fluctuate. So for instance, in the hair salon example, if you've got lots of hair dryers going and lots of machines operating and the lights on all the time, then electricity is going to be variable according to how much you use. Really simple example. So what we need to think about is what are the variable costs for the product or service that you're offering, and how does that change through your scale up? Because what it will do is you make more or do more, depending on whether you're a product or service business, your break-even point will change. And what the break-even point is where the revenue you're getting in for your product or service is the same as how much it costs you to make or deliver that product or service. So you might want to rethink that. In fact, I really strongly advise that when you are thinking about scaling up and you're thinking about different levels of volume and so on, you think about what does that do to my break-even point? How does that affect my pricing? How does that affect my margin and profitability? And really work that through, because it can, ideally scaling up would make you more profitable as long as you can keep the fixed costs low and keep those variable costs as low as possible as well. But it means you can get a greater return unless you need to really go and invest more in fixed cost to give yourself the capacity. I really hope that all makes sense. And of course, associated with all of that profitability is thinking through your cash flow. And there's a fantastic resource here from Mahmood. Mahmood's going to come on the show next week. Think through your cash flow, because think about when you need to invest money in your scale up and think about when you're going to get that money back in through revenue. And are there any gaps in that cash flow? Are there any times when you've got more going out than you have coming in? What does that mean for you from a financial perspective? Because this is where it's a really important thing to balance. Sometimes a lot of scale-ups struggle. There might be fantastic demand. They've demonstrated that demand is there, but what they haven't done is thought about how much they need to invest versus how much they're going to get in and the timing of that. So it's really easy to overstretch yourself. So work that through, think about that in advance and try and do some projections ahead and also think about different levels of volume and different scenarios for how well the revenue will come in and how quickly. So working through that cash flow is really, really important. And all of this, by the way, are things that Mahmood and I will help you with if you decide to join us in the Business Growth Club. And I hope it's something that you think about. Now, I mentioned that sometimes when you scale up, you start off with something that's this big and then you make it that big. And as you expand, as you multiply out, what happens is that there are flaws in the small item, but they're not always immediately obvious. And actually when you expand it, you can see more detail, there's greater granularity. So there's a picture there, a small picture here, yeah, and looks all right-ish, but actually you can see it's not that great when it's expanded. It's a quick portrait that I just was doodling just to show a point, really. And I've got direct experience of that. So earlier in my career, one of my jobs was to be head of own brand product range for a major supermarket, for a national supermarket chain. And what we used to do was we used to create some fantastic new recipes for ready meals in the test kitchen, and they tasted fantastic. Our challenge then was to scale up the production of that and keep the quality, the consistency, but also the price down in a big manufacturing, a big factory environment in food processing and food production. And you'd think if you take the same quantities, the same proportions, the same heat, the same, very similar cooking methods, it would just scale up fine. But it doesn't. The larger scale, big batches we were creating needed adjustment and tweaking and different ingredients and different, balance of flavours and so on from the original small batch, tiny batch produced dish to get that flavour and to get that texture. And you'll experience that in your scale up as well, to get back to the original sort of quality, essence, format of the product or service that's made you so successful so far. It doesn't just always scale up neatly as you get bigger. You'll need to make adjustments and fine tuning to get it back some of the essence that made it great. So as you scale up, you'll start to see imperfections as well, not just in the product or service that you're offering that you'll need to tweak and adjust, but also in processes, because you might be able to get away with a faulty, ineffective process when you're only doing bits and pieces from time to time. But if you multiply the output that those processes are expected to deliver for you, then you'll soon see the weaknesses because they'll be multiplied and magnified several times over. So one of the things I really recommend that you do, even if right now you're not even thinking about scaling up, even if right now you're a solopreneur, you're working on your own, you may not even be outsourcing anything yet, then think about having standard operating procedures and think about creating them. Now that sounds really formal, doesn't it? Especially for entrepreneurs. But what a standard operating procedure is, or a SOP, it really means it's your business's way of doing something. It's the standard process that gets repeated time and time and time again. So for instance, if your business, if you do a lot of things online and you might have a podcast or a video, you would put together a standard operating procedure from planning through to doing the recording, doing the production and the post-production, and then promoting that podcast or video, getting it out to social media, following up and so on. There'll be a whole process around that. And to make sure that works effectively, you can really streamline that and just write down the steps, every step that is taken. And if you don't like writing things down, another fantastic tip is you can create your standard operating procedures by video. So let's say invoicing, for instance, you send invoices every month. That's something that in the future you might want to delegate. What you can do is do a screen recording of you actually raising an invoice and sending it to a customer on the screen, talking through everything step by step, so that when you're ready to delegate, if you want things doing a certain way, somebody can just watch the video at any time and they can see how you want things done. And in fact, I'm talking to one of our Business Growth Club members right now about thinking about how we can get consistency around packaging and dispatch and having a standard operating procedure around that. So anybody who packages the product knows exactly how to do it, what's expected, what order to do things in, and what great looks like. So some quick tips there on thinking, if you are thinking about scaling up, and even if you're not ready for scaling up yet, there are some tips that you can start to think about right now so that when the future comes, you'll be ready and raring to go. I hope you've enjoyed this session, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all your comments and thoughts about what you're doing right now. Where are you with scaling up? Is it something that's been on your mind? Is it something you're thinking about? Drop me a note, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to all the resources that I've mentioned down here. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.